Bang on time. Couldn't do it better. Thank you. Okay, so we reconvene please, and we're up to item 3.3, which is just this. It's better now. The standard health and safety reporting that we get into the committee. So, Parker, again, in your hands, please.
Through the chair. So I've done quite a bit of work through this in relation to health and safety reporting, and you'll see a lot of changes here. In particular, go back. I've actually developed a plan for 2021 to 22 in relation to that health and safety plan, and I talked about it in the previous deep dive paper. And so that is in Appendix A here for you to have a look at. It sets out what we're going to do for the next 2 years. Rob rightly said we've engaged another health and safety resource to help us deliver on that plan. In relation to incident management, I've changed how that will be reported, and I think it's really important for me to be able to give you some insight as to where our hazards, what types of hazards that our staff are and contractor staff are faced with, and the ones that are more prevalent, the ones that they have more incidents in, just to give you a flavour of that. And so I've provided a report based on that, but also being able to say to you, it's in the contractor area staff, or it's in public being, having health and safety incidents, or staff. In saying that, in relation to the reporting, I'm going to be reporting a lot on some of the on some of our other types of things that we carry out in this space. So some of those proactive indicators of good health and safety. So we're talking about sort of training that we're undertaking and things like that. So it won't just be incidents, it'll be other things as well. In relation to hazard management, I've just given you a brief of some of the proactive stuff that we've done. It was identified just before I arrived here that we had some issues around some of our refuse transfer sites, and we engaged a chap to come and have a look, do an audit, and get on top of some of the things that we were seeing around the hazards that they had there. May I say that some of those hazards are quite complex in nature. We're talking here, hazardous substances, we're talking biological agents and ignition sources, so quite a lot of hazards that are interrelated in a lot of ways on those sites. So it was really pleasing to see that we carried out that. We've gone on top of it, I'm pleased to say, and going forward we're looking at an audit program that provides better assurance around these sites that we are actually checking, reviewing, auditing to make sure that they are safe for the contractors, but actually for the public as a whole. So that's really it. In relation to this incident report, we identified 4 major incidents, and I've provided you with a brief summary of what they were, and I can talk to any of those, so I'll leave it to you.
Thank you for that, Parker. Again, want to just acknowledge the nature of the report and its importance. Reflecting that actually being aware of hazards in the first place and risks is the primary need. So I wonder if we just take it in. Well, let's take the order that at least anything directly with the report prior to the Appendix A. Let's deal with Appendix A separately. So essentially it's around hazard management. Anybody like to raise questions for Parker at this point? I had another councillor very real video display of the issues of a refuse transfer station. And this was in the case of a major city. And it was horrendous what the video showed could happen at a interface or at a, whatever you call it, in the transfer station. So I would imagine this probably would have been one of our highest risk areas actually within the district. So, well, how many refuse transfer stations do we have? I should know that number. 7. 7. So the audits cover all 7 sites.
Yes.
Great. Great. And councillors, in your experience, have you noticed a difference? Because I'm sure you must use it. Don't tell me don't create rubbish.
I find we had a situation where somebody backed into the pit, so they put a fence up, and it kind of just becomes a barrier now, so people back into the fence. So it's an ongoing problem understanding and getting people to line up in the right area. So I don't know what the right answer is, but
Well, actually, someone said you said it because that was what the video was a trailer backing and pushing a lady against one of the fences.
Yeah.
There are some imagery, but then what had to happen as far as that is concerned. Anyway, those things that's no longer a possibility or a problem. You just thought through the same.
I think
You kept the fences there, I take it.
well, they keep the fences there, but they hit them. Yeah. So
Yeah.
and then of course it's an obstacle. We've got to try and throw things over and under them. And so I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, Tony.
Just pick up a curious point, maybe it's really exactly the same thing with you. And I sometimes wonder, are you better off to employ extra people so they bring people in and show them where to go and hold them up and tell them where to back and help them out? Because you know what that money is. The rest of it seems every day is another project to stop some lunatic. You either can't back this trailer or and we get extra bill because rather than going in the pit, most of it lies on the outside of the pit. And it was for one instant. So I'm not saying it shouldn't happen, and we should do everything we can to ensure good safety. But sometimes I think there's nothing like someone with a white glove on saying stop or you back in now, rather than relying on us spending a whole lot of capital, putting stuff in, which actually makes the problem worse in some cases, and creates another problem. So I'm pretty ambivalent about some of the stuff that I've seen go on because people have been dumping rubbish for 150 years in this country, and over 79 no doubt. And there's not many things go wrong, but there's a lot of money being spent to try and stop it going wrong, and it's probably never going wrong anyhow. So.
Barry, I was just going to make a comment. Having gone to the touring with dump it on well, the barriers are steel barriers which you can back up and you can back your trailer right in. So you're not walking over screws and nails and all the builders wait for a yard or everybody hanging up. You can back in there easily. But they have about 3 guys.
Oh no.
Stuff sorted out and you go around and what ends up in the pit, actually at the end, is not a hell of a lot because they sort out everything. And gee, that works well. And you know, another couple of guys at some of these transfer stations make one. Hell of a lot.
Yeah, Mark.
Do you then have a liability though if you've got someone there telling someone to back and you
Well,
then...
they don't tell you to back, they tell you to go there. You know.
Right, no, yeah, I was more sort of thinking about Tony's suggestion there, but...
No, the parking attendant, the races or the bucket stuff.
Okay, I'll leave the conversation wandered too far, sorry.
Yeah.
I was hoping that we could take it through that we've done safety work, in fact,
Yeah,
sometimes a couple of
refuse, and I was hoping that you might be telling me you feel quite safe at these things. I'm not certain I've quite got that, but never mind.
Through the chair, the design of the area is really important, but also wayfaring information is really important. You know, slow down, this is where you park, this is where you go, that sort of stuff's really important. So design is everything, to be honest,
That's okay.
in relation to health and safety and exiting the refuse site.
Rob, you had a final comment to make.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, one of the exercises that we've had, and again, it relates to this resource we've had, being very proactive in terms of auditing what actually really went on at these resource transfer stations. We've had a significant target, and I think that would be the best description at the moment, is to try and get these places operating, looking as tidy as they can possibly look, because they were in a bit of a mess, really. So I think we've made significant progress forward in that. And again, there are some other outstanding health and safety matters that we're still working through, but I think the majority, such as holes in the base of the pit, have been sorted, and they've been long-term issues that have just never been sorted. So we, like Paco said, we've got well on top of it. We've tidied up the operation and we're looking to continue to elevate alongside the contract.
And through the chair, the things that have been sorted might not be actually obvious. So you might go there and you may not actually see the changes that have happened, but rest assured they have reduced the risk significantly.
Thank you. Again, let's remember, it's not about removal of all risks, and I think we agree with health and safety, we'll never probably get below yellow, which is a moderate level of risk. And the nature of the tip phase is always with movement, people.
Common sense.
You've got a challenge. Okay, can we move then please to Appendix A, which is the obvious, actually a fair chunk of work gone into this, but as Parker's indicated, is built around development of our health and safety culture and observance and dealing with the ACC audit standards as far as that's concerned. Is there any comment that people would like to make to Parker on the planning program? I must ask, the only thing was in relationship to 1.4, that's on page 47. Parker was actually, what are the internal reporting processes with these incidences? I know we get a centralised version at our end, I'm not worried about that. It is a bit of the sort of the new lead in the pipe issue. What's our internal communication when incidences occur and how do we control those?
So, through the chair, we have an incident reporting tool which staff have access to report where an incident occurred, what happened, and all of that sort of information. So we rely on that. In terms of contractors, we also track incidents that they have, and they provide us with a report in regards to each of those individual incidents, and we then collate that information into this report. We are looking at revising our system for reporting.
Have you got Bolt? Is it Bolt or something?
No, we don't. We have Employee Connect, which has a component that allows us to report those incidents in there. It's fair to say that from my perspective, I've come here and I've seen that the level of near-miss incidents are possibly lower than what I would have expected for this organisation. So we have in this report work that we will be doing to make sure that staff, contractors are reporting those. Near-miss incidents are a precursor to something bigger that might happen. So that's why we take those really seriously, and that's why I need to make sure that more so that staff are reporting those more often than just making sure that they know. But actually more importantly as well is making sure that it's easy for them to report, because if we make it hard, they won't report. So we just need to there's a few things there that we need to kind of tinker with around incident reporting.
The other thing about a bit of advice is I think it's also got to be encouraged that it's okay to report. I think, it's easy, but I'm reflecting on work elsewhere. A person that is prepared for them to say this is not safe, stop, is actually generally, treated with full respect. That's a good call to make. Let's check, are we okay? If we are, let's carry on. If not, let's stop and do something about it. That sort of thinking needs to be encouraged. Yeah. Or approach, that behaviour, needs to be encouraged, not just thinking. Okay, thank you for that. Rob, do you get enough advice on this?
Yes, we have monthly reports.
Yeah, so you're comfortable from your role and you're getting the reporting. You can see I've got a reporting lead at the moment. So.
I get the reporting. Just to reflect historically, I don't believe we've developed our systems and processes around this to aid a building culture. We sort of seem to have stagnated over the last few years, so I'm having a new ramp up with Paku's assistance, and I'm confident that we are going to make significant progress in the next 2 years with rebuilding that culture and actually having some good systems and processes to back it up.
Good. So promising. Can we just have a look then, please, at the final bit of the incident report? Are there any questions people would like to raise with Paku about the incident report as a whole? And he's obviously highlighted to us what
Can I talk about
a bit more major. Yeah.
Can I talk about the major incident summary.
Yes.
I know two of them are Parliamentary that cause issues there, and I just wonder how we can mitigate against, kid jumping off the wharf in the wrong place and a father jumping off a machine and did the wrong thing. So I know they're reported, but what can we do to benefit that? Like, you wouldn't want to shut down the operation.
Councillor, what we have done is every incident is an opportunity to review what we do. So for both of those incidents, we've looked at our processes and had a really close look at what actually occurred and how we can improve things to make sure that things happen so that we do keep people safe and the public, as you're concerned about. In relation to the person jumping off the wall, we do know that we looked at the signage around that wall just to make sure it was really clear, obvious. But listen, there's things that are out of our control. So someone told them not. The people that our people on the spot told the kids do not jump off the wall.
Two didn't, one did.
Correct. So there's things that are really out of our control, but what we do is we reflect on those large investigations, and as an organisation, what can we do to improve to make sure it doesn't happen again?
Okay, thank you.
Can I just ask one question on this? It was about number 3 again. I was just thinking about this idea of PCBUs and what have you. I take it the amusement device, obviously owned by somebody else, is on a piece of land that we are correct to buy.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, thank you for the word. Yep.
Yes, it did. And listen, we are part of that WorkSafe investigation. We have provided them with information. We do have a part responsibility, not in relation to the incident occurring, but what part did we play in relation to our land, on that land. So we're quite comfortable we've got to in relation to that, and we've provided WorkSafe with the information. And it's an ongoing investigation, so I can't sort of comment on that.
No, I appreciate it. But look, just decode for me, when you say we have responsibility in relationship to the land,
yes.
How do you live out that responsibility relative to putting it in use?
So if we were looking at that, we've got a responsibility to make sure that anybody that uses the land, any other PCBU, understand the hazards associated with that land. So that's what we're making sure we tidied up on.
Yeah.
So it's around hazard management. Don't put your device under that tree, because that tree is actually a little bit unstable. Those sorts of things. Yeah.
Yeah, Doc won't let me put my tent up under a tree to get away from the rain out in the hills these days, because the tree might fall over. So that is very good camping out in the middle of the valley, but anyway, it's not a valley. Okay, is there any other questions that people would like to raise? Clark, you've been very helpful. Can I move us please to page 44? We've got a couple of recommendations. I think we've provided feedback, and I don't think there's anything in the reporting at this point that I can say. Somebody prepared to move that we received the report. Thank you, Tony. Can I just take the please? Thank you, Terry. So we are receiving the report, and we just note that we can provide feedback. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? It's carried. Thank you very much, Parky. Had you on the stand for a while, so that's it. If it sounds material, it's not me. Thank you for your good work. Much appreciated. Can we please move to the non-financial performance measures, Q2, 6 months. Bruce comes up, but Bruce, you aren't the main actor. It might be quite difficult to see. Just supporting a sidekick. Yeah, you're psychic. Okay, right. All right, no, you're welcome.
Morning.
This is your report, so you're the main one.
Technically, yes.
Yeah, so far away, please.
Through the chair, I'll take the report as read and any questions or divert them to participants in.
Right, so we've got a couple of things to consider here. One is obviously performance itself, which is well outlined in all its lurid detail in terms of the actual report. There's also the advice here from Hillary that we should be only looking at this every 6 months rather than every quarter. So there are 2 points to raise and discuss, and I'm open to your suggestions now. Comments about the frequency of reporting?
I just got a comment from you.
Yep.
I struggle with this because of the measures that are put up, that sometimes they don't mean anything to me. So 6 months or 3 months doesn't matter because it goes through there and out there and disappears. So that's my problem with it. But if you want to do it 6 months, that's fine.
Anybody else? Why would we have trouble with being 6 months later? Yeah. Can we be upfront? I would be happy though if at the alternate quarter we had an exceptions report. Because generally, even with the 6 monthly report, my eye goes to the red, basically. Either not going to be achieved or that which is off track. The weight of the measures, and I take your point in advice, Terry, that not everything is as clear as they like. I would take the view personally that actually on the whole they are a reasonable indicator of the operation, Bruce. So I do take some reasonable time to go through it and think about it. So I'd be comfortable more if we still kept the idea of quarterly reporting, but actually if we had a focus around the exceptions, which are the red, or the whatever the other colour is, the not on track. One of the interesting things for me, and I think it's important with any committee, is actually we are trying to look forward. And I know we traditionally do this with a financial set of numbers, but actually forecast we were going to land on the end of the year. And personally, I put people away on our non-financial performance. So look, I don't want to either unduly focus solely on this report in terms of time, but I don't want to underestimate its actual value for members as we prepare and think about the performance and the risk around achieving what we want to achieve. So could I just ask that you consider that, and you'll come back to me with whatever your responses are in terms of going forward, Hilary. But if I could just reflect a little bit of disquiet if we only have 2 reports. Okay, can we go to the report, please, then itself? Are there questions people would like to raise? I'm going to take the report as a whole. In the past, I've probably made like teeth extraction and gone through it page by page. Are there any questions people would like to raise about any matter of performance of this report as it stands? I'm sure you've all read it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just give us a... can I just get I'm going to start. Can I just a couple of questions, probably straight clarification of what we've written. First one is about road and serious injuries. Obviously not going in the direction we like, and probably most of those are not directly relevant to us as we've discussed here before. These tend to be multiple factors that affect it. So I take the point on that. Just with the last sentence, it says, where safety issues are identified with road improvements, they are scheduled and implemented. Is that out of any incident report from a particular accident, Bruce?
So through the chair, so we obviously have the reporting system that's used for those serious injuries and crashes, which police manage that. So they go through all their process, and then the recommendations will come out of that. So then all the contributing factors, whether it's alcohol, speed, or whether there's an issue with the road. Yeah. So all that sentence is trying to say is that if anything comes out saying, there was an issue with the road, it needs a safety barrier, or it wasn't swept properly and there was too much alleged chip on the road or something like that, then we address those issues. So.
Right, so with these 6, has any recommendation come from the police at this stage over those matters?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. Would we have received those incidents reports on those 6 at this point? Because I appreciate there's a lag time.
Yes, and there is that's a good point. There's a significant lag time, so we've only heard on a small number of those, I would anticipate. So nothing's made its way through to me, but they can take a long time to come through. It can be even up to nearly 12 months sometimes.
Look, it's not a keep trying better, but what I would like in the future is if you could indicate if we had recommendations,
Yes.
because that actually is that's the reality.
Yeah.
That's what we can control.
Yeah.
If we're being told we don't have the safety barriers, we can inspect our roads in the way that you talked about, that should be of concern to us as a committee. Okay, that's brilliant. So appreciate that.
No problem.
So anybody can jump in. That's not a problem at all. So Bruce, the next one. Don't worry, this is team territory. I haven't got a question to every measure. But again, this is just me asking the dumb question. Under the surface area for seal for resurfacing, why are first and second coat seals excluded?
So I think, through the chair, the reason for that is you do a number of seals on a road, and so the idea is not that you actually count both those seals and you go, okay, we've achieved everything based on, we've double counted effectively where we're sealing.
Yep.
So it's more around where you're actually going and doing a proper sealing treatment on a road, trying to measure that. And obviously this is one of the mandatory measures that we have to have, that's from PIA. So this one, to be fair, has caused us a number of challenges over the years. We seem to have kind of got ourselves a little bit sorted. You can see that not achieved in the previous years. The challenge with this one often is that we've got to set a percentage of our network that we're going to reseal every year. The crews would go out, the teams would go out, engineers, they'd look at them and go, okay, this area doesn't need quite as much sealing as what we may have anticipated, so we're not going to do that area, we'll do this area. And effectively then we'd come in under, and then we'd be failing the measure because we hadn't done 5%, we've done 4% of the network or something. So from my perspective, of managing expenditure, that's a good thing because there's no point sealing roads that don't need to be sealed, but then we fail the measure. So it's quite a balance, and what it does is it just transfers more pressure onto the team to make sure they're setting their targets correctly when we go through the long-term plan and the annual planning process, and make sure they're on their game, So yeah, it has been a challenging one to report on over the years.
Thank you. Terry, do you have a question for that?
Oh, mine just, if I can, Bruce, go back to page 69, which is the level of service count promoted sustainable use of water. Percentage of real water lost from the local authorities network reticulation system. You got 39%, 37%, and 40%, not measured. So those figures, where do they come from?
So through the chair, where they come from is we can only do those actual measures on townships that have water meters through universal water metering. So what we do is we know how much water we're producing in a treatment plant. So we take a certain amount from the stream or the groundwater. We know what we're producing from the treatment plant and sending out. So that's your first number. Then when all the meters are read, they add up across the year how much water each of those meters has been billed for. And then you subtract that number off our treatment plant number and you go, there's a difference. We're 39% under that treatment plant number. Therefore, somewhere between the treatment plant and the meter, we've got 39% lost. Now, lost can be made up of the meters are under reading, so sometimes meters after many years, the meters will spin slower than what they should do. So people aren't actually getting billed for the true amount of water they're using, or it could be from leaks on our pipes, or it could be from leaks on the customer's lateral that runs into their.
And you've got these in all areas, even where meters aren't in, you've got percentage loss.
Yeah, these are targets, and these are again a mandatory measure, so we have to set.
But these are big numbers when people are looking at them.
Well, they are big numbers.
And we're providing water, and you've got a water shortage, or people have got a restriction, then you go 49% to go down the drain.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. What I would say is that
it's not a good look.
No, it's not a good look, and I guess the challenge here is that for me and my team, it's easy because we're engineers and we're working in the space, so we understand the intricacies of it. The reality is to get below 20% loss, you're going to be doing really well. So if we can get to 20%, I'll be really happy. So that's our target, and that's what we're aiming for through the water demand management strategy and all those kinds of things. So as we've probably talked about before, we need to have some loss because the water needs to be under pressure to stop any contaminants coming into the pipe. So we expect to have leakage, and that's a good thing. But again, it's a balance. We don't want to have these kind of numbers, and I agree with Terry, these are very high. So we want to try and get it down to around 20%. So I've just set that expectation so that you don't expect we're going to get to 5% or something. No. But we do need to work hard on doing
That's
that.
That's a concern I have about these numbers. People look at them and say, what the hell's going on?
And they will do, yeah.
How they work with me.
Yeah, they will do. So we're saying we've got twice as much leakage roughly as what we would like to have.
Okay.
So, having said that, we're about transparency, Terry. And I think, and so I want to firstly say, well done, Bruce, that you're up front.
Yeah, but we put in some meters to say, look, we're going to monitor leakage and get it under control. So we've got it in Thames, they've got 49% loss.
Yes, and that's.
So we need to do something with the network.
Yes, so the question is, have we got the plan in place to get to 20%? And you're saying we have.
Yeah, so there's a number of things. There's the water demand management strategy, which is around helping manage what people are using and making good use of what they're actually taking. There's work on leaks that we have to do and tracking down leaks, which can be quite hard to track down. And then there's also making sure that people are understanding and tracking their leaks. And that can be hard at the moment with the way we're doing meter reading, which is only 6 monthly in those areas which have meters. So it means that leaks can go on for 6 months before people even realise and go, oh shit, why am I using so much water, and then fix them. So there's a range of things that we need to do, as well as renewing old pipes. So obviously Thames is an old network, and so we've got a lot of what you'd say are leaky pipes, and so we need to be on our renewals and keep doing those things. So yeah, so we are working on all that stuff. We do need to have more of a focus on.
But even some of the new networks, like Mudarang's 45% and Hahei's 50%. These are big numbers.
Yeah, so they're only targets like Matarangi, because we don't have full metering. So those targets are really, we're just setting a target. So we could have put 25 on Matarangi, because it's just a target. We don't have anything to base it on. So we can do some night flows. So we do some tests in the middle of the night to see what the draw is from the reservoir. So you can get some calculation, but it's definitely not. It's definitely not like what you do, a mass balance with the actual water meters. So, yeah.
So how big, in terms of the scheme of operations, how big an issue is this?
Well,
from a risk perspective, is this stopping us from meeting our goals?
Is it stopping us from what?
Stopping us from meeting our goals, our aims.
I think it's definitely an aim for us to minimise wastage and reduce water. And in some townships where you've got a lot of pressure from growth and you need to be looking and making sure you've got enough water, so we're working with the communities to reduce, like you say, Terry, it's a big issue there, because if we can reduce, by 20% our losses, well, that enables us to connect another 20% of the houses. So it's a big issue in those areas where we're under pressure. In the areas we're not under pressure so much, it's not an urgent issue, but it's not something we want, because it indicates we've got issues around our pipes, or our customers have issues around their pipes. So there's definitely issues that we want to get onto. Some of them are more pressing than others, depending on whether they're a high demand, high growth area.
So I guess my question is, have we got the right prioritisation in this matter within all the sort of operational needs you've got to balance in the end?
Yeah, I think we do. I think we're heading into the right area. So we've definitely put a focus on it. The water demand management strategy obviously is that first kind of focus on it. We're expanding our meter network through the Three Waters reform funding to try and pick up Whitianga and then Whangatara after that. So we're definitely moving and focusing in this space. So it's getting a higher profile, and it is going to get a higher importance across the operations of the water supply activity.
Thank you. We'll keep picking this up through our exceptions report, Bruce, which is fine. Okay, any other questions, Bruce? Well, actually, sorry, it's not report. So before Bruce knows, he's got to front up. Anything else, guys? Can I ask Bruce? Sorry, do you more? No. Can I just ask a question? I'm back on page. Oh, yeah. There's an indication 63. I think this one is looking back on 59. Number of operational resource consent conditions not complied with throughout the year, and there's a number there of 27. Just stepping through that again, we've got lots. I think there's another one where we've got 80 conditions where I think we're saying, in effect, that we are not achieving those conditions. I better, now that I've said it, yes, it's on page 59. Yes, I think I said 69, 59, where again, there are a number of conditions not met. We know in both cases we haven't got any sort of form of enforcement action from the regional council. So describe to me, what are these sorts of conditions? Is it because they know what we're doing and they're happy and they're just they're giving us latitude? Yeah. Or are we risking some form of enforcement?
So through the chair, I believe that they're giving us some latitude because they know we're working on it, and we've actually made some big steps forward. The other reason for that, I believe, is because a lot of these conditions, majority of these conditions, are around reporting timeframes, meeting reporting timeframes, those kind of things, as opposed to actual environmental damage, environmental harm. So obviously, consent conditions are a fail if you don't meet them, whatever they are. But there's a across a consent, there could be 20 to 40 conditions per resource consent. We have a substantial number of resource consents. We have in excess of 20 around the district just for water supply. And well, probably a lot more than that actually if you include some of the structure consents. So yeah, so we're working closely with the regional council. We don't, if we look at our crystal ball, we don't anticipate any enforcement action around these. We're working on them. They know that. We're keeping in touch with them. We're not alone in this situation, obviously, across the region or the country, and we're moving forwards well in this space.
So we've just completed, or not just completed, 6 months ago we completed what was quite a mammoth task to identify all our resource consents, because we actually had
thousands of conditions. Yeah, across all the activities, thousands of conditions.
Many of which we didn't even know that we had. So it was a mammoth task to go through that process. We documented them all. We built a new tool, a new software tool to be able to manage those. So we've worked very closely with the regional council in particular to ensure that we will always know those and we won't lose sight of them. So I think it's, whilst the numbers look quite scary, at least now, which I wouldn't have been able to say this time last year, but at least now we know what we're talking about, we know where we're talking about it, and we know how to fix it if it needs to be fixed. So I think that's a major step forward. But again, it just demonstrates that if we don't have a focus on these sorts of things, how easy administratively it is to lose sight of this sort of thing, because the sheer quantum under the RMA of work that needs to be scrutinised all of the time is massive. So,
yeah, just to talk to that, and I reckon it's bureaucracy gone mad, the money we pay regional council for the consent as well, but that's another question. I'd just like to go to the page 74, which is the rubbish and recycling. And the second there, the missed household refuge service request responded to by the next day. So you're still well beyond under the target, even though you say you're improving 9%. So is that, what's that around the amount to pick up?
So through the chair, so what that's about is obviously if we miss a house, it's then getting back quickly the next day to pick up the bag. So
yeah, I see that. Yeah.
So the challenge is that for our contractors, say they miss a bag on a Monday somewhere, and I can't remember where Monday is. Montana, is it Monday? I can't remember, but it's on the eastern seaboard. The collections. If they miss a bag or some areas on the Monday, the person calls in at the end of the day or the following morning and says, hey, you never picked up my bag. We look at it and go, sure, as we did miss it. It is our fault. Our contracts have slipped. This measure is that they then get back there on the next day. The problem is on the Tuesday, they're off doing all the collections of the Tuesday area. So they're trying to achieve that. So then they've got to send a small crew out to pick up the bags that they've missed.
So I just don't understand that. How do they miss a blue bag though? This is the bit I can't understand. If it's out on the road at the right time,
yep. So
you picked up. So why would you miss one?
So we've got, if you look at it, we've probably got 22,000 properties that we're collecting from every week across the district. So there's a lot of properties. Our contractor, as with any organisation, they have a lot of operational staff, and they do have their own challenges around making sure those operational staff are turning up every day to drive the rubbish trucks and to be the runners on those rubbish trucks. If they get someone who calls in sick late on the day, they quickly have to get another person in. If that person doesn't normally do that run, it can be quite easy for them to miss like a short little road or somewhere where they're not used to it. So you get a lot of, whilst they have a system, you get this local knowledge of the guy who's driving it every day in this area. If suddenly you throw someone else in there, mistakes can get made. They don't follow the same route. Potentially, they might do it in a slightly different order. So we do have issues like that.
So is it financial with paying the people, or is they just not getting the right people? I don't know.
Well, not to get into their business.
Quite a big contract, this one, isn't it?
Yeah, not to get into their business fully, but when you look at it, those kind of industries, they've got a lot of people who are down on the minimum wage, and so for them, performance management and achievement and staff doing the right thing is them just turning up every day reliably. So they have some real challenges around things that, for us in the office, we don't have a challenge with that. We don't have issues where someone just doesn't turn up. So it's a whole nother level of challenges that they work on, and they have to try and, they have to do what they've got to do to achieve the service.
So maybe you need to drop that level of service down.
These measures, possibly, but again, we don't want to kind of drop our measures to meet performance if we don't think it's good enough. So, and it is
Yin and yang.
it is a balance, and it is a tricky one. Like I said, if we look up at the one above it on the missed properties, so we've missed 0 streets, which is good, but 89 properties. We're collecting from 22,000, potentially up to 22,000 properties every week. So if we look at percentages of missed bags or missed properties or missed streets, it's actually minuscule. However, if you're the person who's in that house and you've gone and put your rubbish out there diligently and,
I just want to know, is it in the peak season issue or is it an off-season issue?
It's all year round, but it does get exacerbated during the peak season because they have a lot of temporary staff they call in for the peak season. And they've got serious pressure on them with the volumes that we're putting out, or our customers are putting out, to get through those every day to then not fall behind. Because as soon as they fall behind on a day, then suddenly the Tuesday is a huge day. They're trying to catch up on the Monday, plus do the Tuesday. So it does get worse during the peak.
The mighty blue bag's good for 2 days and go up the seagulls, but not longer than that. So.
Well, then, exactly, and then suddenly you've got the issue. Okay, so now we've got rubbish on the road because seagulls attacked a bag. So you've got to they've got to get some other staff. Their other staff to go and clean that up. And it's a snowball effect. So everything's good if it's all just working properly. As soon as one thing doesn't work, it snowballs. So yeah, so it's critical.
Thank you. Robin, you had a question?
Oh, no, just Chris, you also said assuming that people put them out on time. So is there a component of that where I said that I put my bag out?
Yeah, so there is a component of that, and that's why we've got in brackets on validation.
Yeah.
And we try and validate it, and it's getting easier to validate it now because they've actually upgraded. They had a GPS system, which was not great. They've actually upgraded it, so they've got a GPS system. They've got like 6 cameras on each truck, so they've got a camera looking forwards, backwards, to the side, in the hopper. So we're getting better information now because, I put my bag out at, my rubbish collection is 10 a.m. every week, so I'll put it out at 9:30, and then one day they decide they're going to come at 8 o'clock, and suddenly I get, I go out at 9:30, put my bag out, call up and say, you missed my bag. Previously, it was quite hard to work it out, and obviously then I just say, no, I put it out by 7:30, so it's getting easier to validate where the fault has come from. But we do have some challenging properties where we have challenges with the customers and also challenges with the contractors sometimes. We've had one up in Coromandel, John knows well about that. Between John and I, we spend more hours than we wanted to on that one.
I haven't heard from them for a long time, Bruce.
Touch wood, now we're going to hear from them. I shouldn't have mentioned it, so it'll come through now. So
thank you for that. That's pretty helpful. So it is. Bruce, oh, sorry, John.
Just what we're doing with rubbish and recycling. I agree. I don't think we should go out 6 months either. I'd like, and the first thing I do look for is the red. And rubbish and recycling is one where we don't perform that well all the time. But I wonder if we're actually setting our goals a little higher than 3 to 7 plastics. If they're going to continue to be burnt to landfill, we're setting ourselves up a fail there. We need to look at and we've set our levels perhaps.
Yeah, so through the chair, those are reviewed as part of the LTP process, and you're right. These are all set and 3s to 7s were being collected. Now we're not collecting them.
So we're going to fail.
Exactly. So we need to revise those targets. They will be revised as part of the LTP.
Does it have to go through the LTP? Does it?
You can't just change them like at any time. Yeah. So you can't do it.
So
okay.
Having said
It's a process.
One thing that comes in will be reflect the change context and environment in which we were operating, which is they can't be recycled number 1, number 2, and so you say the LTP. Now, trying to pick up on the settings that you are from. Okay, that's a very good discussion, by the way, on the whole, because actually, Terry, you want to actually the service provider question. And also, we can see the interests of actually having you manage a contractor for a long-term contract, highly expensive, and actually the cost of us overseeing against the time you've got to take the money.
Yeah, and the only other thing is around with the the waste contract coming up soon is that ideally you want there to be less recycling collected because we want less waste and packaging and everything around that. So I guess there's that balance between having that goal, but then if you don't achieve it, you could say, well, it's actually a good thing because there was less.
Yeah. Yeah, so ultimately we want less recycling because we want people buying less of the packaging that needs to be recycled. So you're right, that's the ultimate goal, but on the way there, we want to increase recycling. So we're not putting everything into landfill, but we're on a journey where we're hopefully...
We're getting marked as failed, is it?
Yeah, hopefully less to landfill, less recycling and just less actual use. So.
Thank you. Final call for any questions, we're up. Good, I just have one final question, which I do want to go and ask because I'm most interested in safety. Page 98, so it's the last page of the report. Just notice with property, we had non-compliance, only missed by a small amount, due to a missed IQP inspection. Again, I want to ask the dumb question, what's an IQP inspection?
It's an independent qualified person who checks our specified systems in the building, so your emergency exits, lights, things, fire alarms, things like that. During COVID, they weren't able to inspect, and once they are missed, or you can't issue a building warrant fitness, so you can't come back from it, can't issue a retrospective one. So that's why we've failed on that measure, but the building the systems are still safe and working, and we don't expect to fail again.
Well, you say that if you haven't had the inspection when you're saying it's about safety, but I take the point.
Yeah.
The risk that the building is actually unsafe is low.
It's very low, yeah.
I would imagine they've had through the chair, I would imagine they've had the inspection, but they didn't have it at the frequency they needed it.
Correct.
Because of the COVID issue.
No, I get your point.
They've been back.
No, I get your point. You missed it. You're never going to comply.
Yeah, and during COVID, they did issue a building safety report as an alternative to that, and that's happened across the country for it, so to ensure that it was still safe.
Good old code, it's got lots of answers for, isn't it? Okay, can we please then go to, let me just find where I am, the actual resolution. That's really helpful, so again, thank you for that. Have we found any risks? I don't think we have. I think we've understood the challenges of maintaining level of service. What you say was the water, Terry, that was in course to total, so we're paying really hot to lose water out of pipe. Bruce knows that well, and I won't reopen that conversation, but the accountant just has to say that. So we do have some serious challenges, and that's where the report's been helpful to point us towards. But also we've got some assurance from Rob around actually we are looking at some processes and systems about actually making certain we know, this is the consent discussion we had, that actually we are on top of what are the externally expected standards. We've also got a sense of some of the risks of maintaining a good stakeholder relationship with the regional council, because they will determine how life is for us when around these consents. If there's something put in enforcement order or they want to take us to court or something, I can give you any number of examples. All of a sudden, the regional council is taking it to court if it becomes very, very unhappy. Martin, you got a final point?
Did we decide about the frequency reporting?
Yes, we have asked already to consider an exception report in the alternate quarters when we don't get a full report.
Right.
Yep. Can I go to the resolution, please, on page 50, which is something that we received. I'll move that from the chair. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Martin. So I've got the motion that we received the report it's effectively, as you realise, for the 6 months, 31 December. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, Laurie. Appreciate that. Bruce, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, growth projections. I think it's next. Yeah, brief.
Okay, so I'll take the report as read. I just put it background, I was really just to satisfy my curiosity. So I asked the staff if they could have a look at graphing some of the data of the rating unit growth, like what the predictions were, back to, several ICPs, as opposed to actual, just to see how accurate or not the projections were. So I think the results are quite interesting. I guess the first thing I did when I looked at them, I thought, well, it looks a wee bit weird because starting points for 2021 and 31 aren't the same. Why are they not the accurate? You think that they would be? So the reason why that is because Infometrics, they had to use 2018 data as the starting point. based on the 2018 census, because as you would all remember, the 2020 census data has been deemed not reliable, so that's why that little blip is here. And then you might also notice, if you look at the Coromandel coal graph, the infometrics data does a little dive down. How's that possible? How are we going to have 100 less properties and within 1 year? What's happened up there?
Have a fire.
Yes, so I did, we contacted infometrics and asked them about that one. And the problem with that, the reason why this one is looking like this at the moment is because, again, they use the 2019 actual rating units provided by us, but then from 2020 onwards, they use their calculation, their growth projections to calculate, and because there was what they call a zero population growth, that's how it skewed that data down like that, when we actually did have some growth in that time. So we've been back to them and pointed this error out, and they're going to change that for us. So what that means is we'll be adding another 111 rating units to Coromandel, which will also add there to the total district. But yeah, I'm going to take, it's really just for an interest for the audit committee, just to have a look at it and you'll see that it's just quite hard, obviously, to predict and to project these things when you look back historically where the projections are where the actions have been.
Yes.
But I'm happy to take any questions.
No, thank you, John. This is really helpful. So I think I've got Tony and then I've got Martin.
My understanding, kind of, only one thing about this since I've been around is wrong. I would have thought that a more accurate thing for us was to look at the actuals, and so we know what we've got. We know what we had this time last year, and we know what we've got right now, and that can match up in sense. And over 10 years, the trend on that, and then plus the local knowledge about talking to people who actually live in these towns, who see it every day of their life, and not infometrics. So sitting back looking at a model, populated the whole of our millions, that don't ever see people, don't ask personal questions. I would say, I understand it. I understand we run the census data, and we understand the flaws in that. But for us, we've never had it right, and we could have had it a lot more right than we've had it if we used the internal intelligence. So I think myself, I went and looked at what the number of rating units that have the dwellings have been built. We can get all that information. That provides far more relevant information to me. And then go and ask a few developers and say, Mr. Homer, how many houses do you think you're going to build in the next 15 months? Because I disregard all this information. There's no credibility in any of me whatsoever. But I've got to listen to this. Well, I see it. 200 rating units in our town in 1 year, more than we ever talked about. 200 more people using water, 200 more rubbish bags, 200 more of everything. That's only one developer. So anyhow, I just think there's going to be a better methodology and not relying on metrics or any other statistician organisation.
So if I could just ground that back to, or ground that in the exact piece of work you're doing at the moment, which is good.
Yeah.
So generally your growth projections are really significant. If you're a district facing 1.5% growth in rating units, if you can predict that, that's really helpful. Because if you have a 3% lift in rates, and you're getting a 4.5% lift in rates, because you've got new units coming on board as well, you're getting more revenue. And everybody, and that's from a rating perspective, loves growth. But actually, if you start to bank on that growth in your projections going forward, what's the problem if you don't achieve your growth objectives? Okay, so it is a significant number, hence I was appreciative that this was on board, and I know that you will be a long way through your LTP, and they are based on the infometrics, right? And the obligation on councillors is that actually when you at any point move to adopt, whether it was your consultation document, most particularly your long-term plan, is that in your opinion they are based on best estimates. So you have to be comfortable with the information that's being used, which includes these assumptions. So are these wildly out, Tony?
For some parts of the district, yes, they have been for 11 years, long of it. And more than that.
And how significant has that been in terms of the financial impact for us? This is a fundamental question, by the way. I'm asking a fundamental question. What, you've said you don't have any confidence in Tony, well, you're going to have to pass a resolution pretty darn soon that actually the Audit is right.
Well, the issue for me is that we are told, and I don't disagree, you've got to have a stake in the ground. So if it is population information, it's on census data. I agree now, you've got to have something. But we all understand, and so does Informatics understand, that the census data isn't a one size fits all. So that's the issue I'm here. And so, are we providing enough infrastructure? I'm going to think what's happening out there. There is growth.
I agree. I said it. I mean, again, Bruce's structure plans will be all based around growth. So I'm just wanting to raise the question here. If we're going to say the interventions work is not right, it's not the best information, that's actually quite a significant statement. I don't think we're going to solve this actually, by the way, this committee, but you are in the process of adopting an LTP, and I'd like to know how you manage that risk. I'll bring it back in. So can I just put it back your way, Don? You asked for this with interest, and you've got some good information there. Are you of the view, the professional view, that this is indicative that we need to revisit our projections?
No, actually I don't, because if you look back on if you take the district topograph, for example, the dark blue line there, that was actual. So that's actual.
That's not what we up to 2021. Yep.
Yeah, so if you go right back to 2010 and have a look, it's relatively, for the first 3 years of that 2012 LTP, which is the orange line, it's relatively, within code.
Yeah.
And then you get to the grey line, which is the next LTP, and then you see the blue line is relatively in code with that for the next 3 years. The bit where it does veer off a bit, which was an issue for the last LTP, I believe, in 2018, you see that orange, yellow line sort of goes up quite higher, so that's indicating that we were going to be having a lot more growth than what we actually did. When you look at the actual blue line, it's quite a lot lower. So if you apply that sort of rationale when you're looking at the other grades that within your area, you sort of get a general idea of where we're at. I think it's interesting to see that Informatics this time, if you look at the 2021, it looks like they might be undercooking it a bit. That would be my only view when you look at this.
For which there is some risk that we underestimate. Yeah. So I've got Martin next and then Kerry.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Don. If you take out the oldest one, which is the orange line, which is 2012, which is 9 years ago, if you take that out and then actually extend the graph so that it's proper scale, because at the moment it's only on a 9,000 odd. If you took that out, those lines actually don't look too bad. I get Tony's point.
Yeah.
But actually, it's not too bad. And it's, you can make the statistics and graphs say what you want, but yeah, I agree with you that I don't think it's too bad. It's something, we've got to go on something.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, part of the assumptions that we use for the LTP, we do have to rely on the data that is being provided to us some way, which is why I wanted to do this, because I wanted to look back historically and see, how it did actually work out in the end, to see if we can rely on it going forward. And I think that, I think when we're talking about assumptions, we're okay.
Kerry?
Yeah, and this assumptions, and that's a bit that really concerns us. Is when people look at it, the assumption is, and I hear what Tony's saying too, that there's not much going on in the town in the future. Well, I can tell you, if we got the infrastructure in the town, we'd sell another 500 houses just like that. So we don't like those assumptions because they don't paint the right picture. And that's what we're trying to get a spatial plan to move, grow the town. We've got money coming out of everywhere. There's millions and millions of dollars being pumped in every week. And if we had the expansion going on, as we're asking for, then that graph would be look totally different. At the moment, it doesn't look good. The people looking to say, oh, that doesn't look good for the future there. So I hear what Tony's saying, I agree with him. Assumptions locally are different to assumptions in Wellington.
Yes, Tony?
So more a question for you, Chris, and say this is one of these things I often come back to with local government. Does every council in New Zealand forecast population growth on infometrics information or?
No, they don't.
So there should be one way that everybody, well, I'm saying, this stuff for me is so basic. It's not very accurate for that.
Tony, if I look across some of my engagements, clearly informametrics is one of the key vectors of growth. I would say, and I'm trying to think of a high growth council like Waipara. Okay, so they're actually one of the sort of hidden growing councils in this country. I mean, Cambridge just from their late TLB. They use informametrics, but they also triangulate with, was it Nadia, where they call themselves out of Waikato University. So they look for 2 or 3 sources of information to be able to reach an estimate that as a council they are comfortable with. So it is a case, in effect, can I say it, and probably is the case here ultimately, as a systematic process. It's one that you probably want to monitor regularly throughout the planning cycle, not just as once every 3 years. So yes, the answer is yes, informametrics are accepted. If that's a point you'd like me to make is a credible practice. But I'm also conscious that councils, do use some alternate providers, and I think for councils that are affected by growth, they've probably taken the effort to consider not necessarily a second opinion, but they cross-check with other sources as well.
I'm not questioning everything. Ultimately born.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know the company. I know that.
Yeah. Okay.
What I was going to say is, I just think there should be a standard that every local authority deals with. There is no doubt, at least we all know we've dealt with the same people, the same processes, and they're all with the same amount of rightness or wrongness. But we are basing it on informametrics, credible as they are, but I can assure you, they haven't been right in 10 years I know about it, not even close to being right.
We're all struggling with that for good sense of that. In other words, 2013, it was a step and a half.
Yeah.
Okay, so any further debate? So Don, thank you for your report. Actually, I'm glad you bring it up. It does reflect probably that we have got the highest risk assumption here relative to your LTP. At the moment, we're saying that over the long term, we seem to be relatively comfortable, but will not necessarily take away particularly from the growth issues. It just doesn't mean that we've got the growth issues easily covered on the eastern seaboard. They will be ones that you also have to have a plan how much growth you would have had, which goes back to your point here. Okay. Right, can I move to the resolution? I think we need to simply leave this as received. It does mean that you've got some more good information to go into your long-term plan and should consider the responses back to the people. Take it from there. Can I have somebody move that we receive John's very helpful report? Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Robin. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Thank you for that. Hayden, great. Welcome along. Very patient there, thank you. Here's the report.
Yeah, I've got the DIRS report as the end of January 2021. Basically, at the end of January, we've got 49.3 million in rates money, of which 3.5 is uncollectible related to Merrifield land agreements and postponed rates. Probably points to note, we've sent 66 historical debtors off the Bay Corp, of which 25 are paid in full, so we've collected 200k of that, and 8 have implemented arrangements to pay, and the remaining continue to be pursued. In addition to that, we have arrangements to pay in place currently totaling 651,000. And 38,000 with the mortgagees for collection. In the sundry debtor space, at the end of January was 887k, slightly up on the previous year, but that was due to sort of a one-off development contributions invoice of 382k. So if you back that out, we're doing not too bad. And we currently have 27 debtors totaling 12.5k in the sundry space with Bay Corp, and 11 sundry debtors we're able to pay. In addition to that, we've been really proactive with sort of our debtors. The big space we're really working on is obviously using external debt agencies if we have to. We're working really closely with our internal legal team, so some of our historical debtors, we are working with them to come up with a legal letter, which we've sent out as the first step to sort of encourage those sort of more historical debtors to pay. The next step, we're also looking at maybe using an external legal team to sort of encourage, I guess, more people to pay. And we're also looking at sort of some of our abandoned land debtors, which have sort of been around sort of a long time. We're just trying to sort of tidy them up, really go through the process. There's a step-by-step process you have to go to before it can be considered abandoned land. So kind of working through that at the moment. And I guess the big focus for us in the debtor space is year end. So, I mean, really that's all it comes down to, how we finish first half year, really. I mean, in previous years, that's really what the team's focusing on. So we have a monthly meeting with legal, and we just basically go through all the debtors, and we focus, I guess, on sort of the more historical ones. And I guess we've got one coming on up a bit later on, which is a historical one that's been around a while. We've just got to work through it. That's really where we're at with the debtor space. But yeah, it all comes down to year end and how we finish. So
thanks, Hayden. Appreciate your comments. Can I just get a point of clarification, please? If I was just to go to page 104 of the actual rates debtors table, essentially what I'm taking from this is we've got $4.8 million in rate debtors into the new year, to the current financial year, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, cool. And the $78 million is essentially the rate strike for the 2021 year.
Yeah, so we've got, here there would be in there 46 million. There will be two outstanding rate strikes. Obviously the one on the 15th of February, which is just been paid, and then there'll be one on the 15th of May.
Right, okay. And so if I look at the year one column, $3.1 million was unpaid rates on the 1920 year. And at June, and we now have $731,000 outstanding. And then for that year, okay. So by my quick calc, rough guesstimate, we've got about $3.1 million of the old 4.8 has come in the door.
Yes,
in the last 6 months.
Yes, so we've done a lot of things, like we sent a lot to mortgagee. I think from memory it's about 700k.
Yep.
700k we sent to the mortgagee on around after the 1st of November, and that was really effective. Obviously, they just pay straight away, basically.
Brilliant. Good. Very helpful. So can I open this question on? Sorry.
I just also want to add that our year-end debtors were a bit higher than normal last year. That was, we did report back, I think, at the last meeting, but that was due to COVID. Just reminding you that the council took the stance of, you know, having a more softer approach to leading up to year end than what we normally would, to allow people more time to pay. We also extended the date of our final instalment. So of course what that meant is that year end we had a whole lot more debtors than what we normally would have.
Okay, do I have comments from the committee as far as the debtors reports?
Maybe just a quick one, just clarification around the development contributions. I see there's a big one coming through for 382,000.
Yes.
Is that for the whole lot? Is it sold per section, per lot?
That's for the whole stage.
The whole stage. So is it completed and they've all got the 224 and then they pay it, or is it by section?
Yeah, once to get their 224C, they have to pay their development contributions.
Yeah.
So there's an issue around 224C, and then
So they hold on their payment until it's resolved and they
until it's
pay.
resolved. Yeah, they're working through it. We've, I guess, a plan downstairs. Once I guess they're going to get it, they'll pay, and it'll be released.
Okay, thank you.
Right, thank you, Hayden. That's clear, and I think we should just note as we go through the motion that actually you're taking the additional action and opportunity approaches and what have you, if that is appropriate. So thank you for that. Can I move to the resolution, please? On page 103, and I'll move to the chair for you to see the debtors update. Please. Thank you, Terry. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Right, this is members' communication. Thank you. Appreciate that. So talking to the elected members, that's novel. Sorry, it's a bit to be a joke, by the way. I'll stop making jokes on the joke making. Thank you, Lorna, for bringing on.
So, thank you. We do a quarterly communications report to elected members, which goes out through the council's weekly update. What we are doing now as well is just getting feedback on a quarterly basis from all the elected members, just around the communication tools that are being used, how you're receiving your information from staff. I'll take the survey as read. We also went around to all the community boards and got hard copies of the survey, so you all filled it out. All the councillors did. So this is just the results of the survey. It was really good for us as a communications team to look at, there were particular issues around projects that some councillors or community board members raised. And it was also a really good opportunity to just have some one-on-one time with some of the elected members who had raised specific issues that, you know, we could actually have a conversation and address them very quickly. We'll be doing this, as I say, on a quarterly basis. I thought it was quite interesting that overall there is a general sense of satisfaction. There is good suggestions about ways that we can improve how we're communicating to the public around, you know, using different sort of tactics and telling the story in a different way. So that's been really good for the communications team to get that feedback as well.
Thank you, Lorna. That's and thank you for the signal, Gary.
I seem to be able to get onto the site without having to use Facebook. You can look at it, can't you, without using Facebook? I do know that, you know, I don't post Facebook, I always don't use Facebook or social media, but I have to say I and members of my larger family do not use Facebook now because we know of certain things that have happened. That personal privacy has just been completely thrown over. So I don't really think we should be encouraging the Facebook way to go, stick with what we've got.
We do have with the Facebook, we do find in cases of emergency management, that's the go-to place where everyone will go to Facebook. We, you know, in times of like when we've had, you know, cyclones and things like that, over 100,000 people went onto the Facebook page over 5 days. The reach has been quite significant. We do use other social media tools as well. So we do use Instagram and we do have LinkedIn and lots of other sort of social media tools. We use Facebook just because you know, that is the one that is the most sort of popular and used and has been for some time, but absolutely looking at lots of different ways of using that social media.
Yeah, and I mean, I take issue a little bit with the use of the phrase oldies, our senior citizens don't use Facebook or social media. I think that's actually false because increasingly it's the younger people who don't use it because their grandparents are on it. And yeah, I think it's used widely, and I think it would be a mistake to remove that from the.
Oh, that was actually a comment from an elected member who wrote that. So
Yeah.
But also we can actually look at the analytics of who is the demographic, and for Facebook it is, for our Facebook, it's mostly women between 20 and 55-year-olds.
Yeah.
Based around Auckland and the Waikato. So we can actually see the analytics and demographics of who's using what tools. So it isn't a lot of oldies.
If I think on board Lorna's comments, actually, it's not the staff that used to wear oldies, it's you guys. So
Yeah,
wear oldies about like me, so look at yourselves, not the staff.
Lorna, so look, this is useful. It's showing multiple channels are effective, and as you say, overall, there is general acceptance that comms with elected members generally, and I guess it links in a bit further in the community are reasonable. Are you taking out of this any other initiatives or any other ways of communicating, or how's it influencing the sort of things?
I think for us, this is always a good way to look at video is just, a lot of the ways that we are having to improve. And we're finding that also with just our long-term plan consultation, that some of the ways that we're looking at communicating with the public is a lot more of that online accessibility. And again, this is a sense check. We'll be doing it every 3 months, and we're getting a reflection of what the elected members are hearing in the community. We also do surveys with the community directly, so it's just other ways that we can look at how we can improve. And also talking with LGNZ just to benchmark against what other councils are doing and getting an idea of what good looks like around the country.
Great, no, that's superb, thank you. Any other questions for Lorna as far as concerned? Thank you for that. Can I ask somebody that we receive appreciation of Lorna's report? Thank you, Murray, to second it. Thank you, John. I'll put the motion that we receive the report. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? It's carried. Thank you very much. Right, we're virtually back on time. I lost it a bit there, so I think we're back there, which is good. So I do suggest that we take a break. Is half an hour long enough? Too long?
20 minutes.
20 minutes. You said 20 minutes, don't you?
Yeah, so I'm coming to come back.
Oh, okay. I think that would be good. I'll suggest to make 6-minute records. We do have a good line in front of us. Could we please reconvene at 20 past midday?
20 past?
That's 16 minutes.
That clocks out.